So just to mention a couple of things. You know, I've talked about the goalpost effect a little bit, where you have equal strength and equal strength. You know, there were, what, I guess pretty much three things that made this area and that area too equal. First one was the general idea that this was going to be an evergreen, and these two, as a couple, were going to be an evergreen, or going to be evergreens. That was one. So we were going to have green foliage, reddish trunk, two reddish trunks. Too much symmetry. The third one was, and this is actually quite important, this carries off the top of the canvas. So much of the strength of this tree would be imagined in a sense, because we know that's very much forward, because there's so much more to it up here. This one was also going off the top of the canvas, so that additionally reinforced too much symmetry. I wanted to get rid of that. So obviously this trunk is too thick. I'm going to change that quite a bit. But I capped it off. I capped the top of the tree off here. I didn't want it running off the top of the canvas, even though there's just a little bit of a space there. It's still going to stop before it shoots off the top, in any major way, anyway. So I need to work with this, and I'm going to bring these colors into this area as well. So now, really, we well and truly are going to have greens here, and as I mentioned before, diagonally greens here. Okay, still have to do that. But what I also have is this area, and I forget, see, I had something in mind. I forget what I was going to say about that. Yeah, you know, I laid little bits of line in here. And even though they're just little short bits of line, immediately you'll know that there's a field in behind this shed. And I'm still debating as to whether to keep it or not. It's funny because there's such little bits. But if I were to leave them there, you would feel as though there was a field behind there, and then I would have to sort of really tone down the background. I'm not sure I want to do that. If I remove these lines, suddenly it brings these trees that are in the background much closer, and you have a more gradual walk through the painting. Haven't decided what I'm going to do with that yet. Okay, now I remember what I was going to say. When I put the cabin in here, it really had to be, okay, that's such an important, not just design element of the painting, but as content. Because it has the human element attached to it, people are naturally drawn to the idea of an old shed. And I had this small tree sort of cutting into it, in front of the cabin, and I felt that kind of block the view, so that it would hinder your ability to see the cabin. The cabin's important enough that I think I'm going to leave it available on full view. That's why I got rid of this last little bit of foliage here, or this small tree that was here. And I'm just going to lay a bit of a clearing in front of it, and push that back. Okay. I think I've got both feet in my mouth now, just enough. Well, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do here, if it was going to indicate another field. And then, you could peer across that little clearing, not a field, but a clearing, and then onto some other trees. And I thought, no, let's keep our subject focused around here on this plane. So that allows the distant plane to remain quite impressionistic. So really what I'm going to do, I've got a few charcoal lines in. I'm not going to follow them. I'm just going to take this color that I've got going on here. What is that? Yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, a bit of ultramarine blue, I guess, and maybe a hint of raw umber. And I'm just going to wash in the whole background with those colors. And then when I do my final painting, then I will redistinguish hints of other trees, other shapes in the background. But I don't want them to be strong. The main trees are washed in now. Happy with how this has worked out. Yeah, and I'm going to wash that in, and then we'll start. I'm going to have to think about how I'm going to make those rocks become a little more mature and interesting. The gist of it's there, but they certainly need a lot more work. So if I remember correctly, I originally was going to have a little more light on this side and keep the trees on the far right quite dark and in the shadow. To some degree that'll remain the same, but we've kind of flipped things around a little bit because we flipped, you know, first our rock was coming across here. Now the strongest part of this rocky ridge is coming across here. This is in fact now being kind of the closest one, right? So what I'm doing is I'm not going to make my rock design today anymore, but I'd kind of like to tone this area down, you know, so that it appears as though there's a bit of a gentle swale. I don't want to have a dive straight down. I don't want strong lines right there on the left. There's a lot of content in this area here and above it. There's a little less content on the right up high. So what we'll do is minimize the content here and increase it over here where I'm going to have a few rocks showing. So yeah, what I'm washing in right now is just pretty much going to be a little bit toned down, a little bit in the dark-ish. Okay, that's getting a little too green. I don't want a bit of green, but I don't want too much. That's getting too dark. Let's throw a little, I was adding a little raw umber to it. Let's put a little bit of white in there. A hint of yellow ochre. See what that looks like. I put this line in with charcoal earlier, and that's fine. It's a general guide. It's not exactly the shape I'm probably going to use there. This whole area is going to require, you know, it's a big area. It's going to require some thought and some organizing. This, not so much. So, again, I think I said this the other day, let's get rid of some white. If you're getting rid of some white, you're making progress. Well, as long as you're doing it thoughtfully, you don't really just get a roller and get rid of the white, because that, unless you're a New York artist, or a muralist maybe, but anyway, you know, that's not my cup of tea, so. I'm just toning this down. You know, maybe I'll even allow this to come back up a little bit. Maybe I should do that, or at least allow the option so that I don't just keep plummeting with this line right down off the end. I think it'd be wise to just leave it be for now and make that decision a little bit later. I'm just gonna try to give you a little bit better overview of the painting here. Well, ladies and germs, there it sits, that bush on the right. The ground cover on the right looks very purple. That's just fine. It's the wash-in. Now we temper some things and tone things down and add a few lines, get rid of a few lines, and raise the chroma of some areas, put some light on some areas. But before all of that, I need to put a few stones in the foreground, maybe a bit of bedrock peeking above this grass. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching.